Daf Yomi, Tractate Menachot, 95b, very top of the page with the words Rabbi Eliezer Omer. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Yachol Lachul Zav Mitzeroim, Nirtzun Zav Pesach Haba Bituma, Yochol Yehu Chayovin, Talmud Lo Yimal, Yishalchu Min HaMachaneh, Kol Tzirua, V'chol Zav, V'chol Tomei Lenafesh, I'm sorry. בשעה שטמא מייסים משתלחין, זוב מצרים משתלחין. Rabbi Eliezer says, one might have thought that if Zavim and lepers pushed their way in and entered the temple courtyard during the sacrifice of a paschal offering that is brought in a state of impurity, meaning when the majority of the nation are ritually impure due to contact with a corpse, that perhaps the Zavim and lepers are liable. In other words, one might have thought that since it is prohibited for Zavim and lepers to enter even under such circumstances, they would be liable to receive excision from the world to come, which is karet. Therefore, the verse states that they send out from the camp any leper and any Zav, and any one impure by reason of a corpse. Numbers 5:2. The verse indicates that at a time when those who are impure with impurity imparted by a corpse are sent out of the temple, Zavim and lepers are also sent out of the temple and are liable to receive karet if they enter it. Ein tmei meisim mishtalchin, ein zavim tzeroim mishtalchin. But when those who are impure with impurity imparted by a corpse are not sent out of the temple, zavim and lepers are also not sent out. Meaning, they are not liable to receive karet if they enter the temple. The Braita that teaches that once the curtain surrounding the tabernacle courtyard was rolled up, it was permitted for zavim and lepers to enter the place where it had stood, is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. The reason is that once the curtain was rolled up, it was permitted for those who were impure with impurity imparted by a corpse to enter. It was prohibited for them to enter only the temple courtyard, and this had been dismantled. According to Rabbi Eliezer, it was permitted even for Zavim and lepers to then enter the camp. The Braita that rules that even when the tabernacle was dismantled, Zavim and lepers were sent outside the camp is in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis. Problem solved. Okay? New Mishnah. Zog the Mishnah, achas shtei lechem v'achas shtei aponim. Achas shtei lechem v'achas lechem aponim. Lishoson v'nechoson b'chutz v'afyoson b'fnim. Ve'en andoichos es ha-shabbos. V'ud omer kol masem b'fnim v'rishim omer לעולם מעבירו גילוי מהשתי הלחם ולחם פונים כשרוס בזורה וכשרוס בבייס פagi. Bethphage. In the case of both the two loaves and the showbread, the kneading of their dough and the forming of their loaves take place outside the temple courtyard, but their baking takes place inside the temple courtyard, and their preparation does not override Shabbat. Rabbi Yehuda says all of the procedures involved in their preparation take place inside the courtyard. Rabbi Shimon says one should always be accustomed to say that the two loaves and the showbread are fit if they were prepared in the temple courtyard, and they are also fit if they were prepared in Bethphage, in Beit Pagi, outside the Temple Mount, as he maintains that they may be baked outside the temple courtyard. Okay, and now for the Talmud. Zog the Gemara, Haguv Akashia. The Mishnah states that according to the opinion of the first Tana, the two loaves and the showbread are kneaded and shaped outside the temple courtyard, but they are baked inside the courtyard. The Gemara comments, this itself is difficult. Amrit, Lishasam v'nechasam machutz alma midas yovesh lo niskadsho v'yafyasam mifnim alma midas yovesh niskadsho marabo iksha odom koshe shuhu koshe kebalzel umanu rav sheshes. The Gemara elaborates. You said initially that the kneading of their dough and the forming of their loaves take place outside the temple courtyard, one can infer from this that apparently the dry measure, meaning the vessel used in the temple for measuring dry substances, for example, flour, was not consecrated. If the dry measure sanctified the items placed in them, the flour brought for the 2 loaves and the showbread would already be sanctified, and these loaves could not be kneaded and shaped outside the courtyard. And the Mishnah subsequently states that their baking takes place inside the temple courtyard. One can infer from this that apparently the dry measure was consecrated. If the flour had not been sanctified by being placed in the measuring vessel, why must the loaves be baked inside the temple courtyard? Rabbah says, a formidable man who is as tough as iron raised this difficulty. And who is that sage? This is referring to Rav Sheshet. The Gemara asks, what is the difficulty? Perhaps the measure of 1/10 of an ephah, which is used to measure the flour of the 2 loaves, and the showbread does not sanctify that which is placed inside it, but the oven sanctifies the loaves that are baked in it, and therefore they must be baked inside the temple courtyard. Ela ikashia hakashia. Vafiyasan bifnim al matano mikadesh ve'in doichos es Shabbos. Ipaslo belino omorove hikshadam kashe shu kashe kebar zelumanu kavsheshes. Rather, if the Mishnah is difficult, this is difficult. The Mishnah states that the baking of the 2 loaves and the showbread takes place inside the courtyard. Evidently, the oven sanctifies that which is baked inside it, and the Mishnah subsequently states that kneading, shaping, and baking the loaves does not override Shabbat. If these procedures were performed before Shabbat in a vessel that sanctifies them, the loaves would be disqualified by virtue of the fact that they were left overnight without having been placed on the table. Rather, Rabbah says, a formidable man who is as tough as iron raised this difficulty. Who is that sage? This is referring to Sheshet. Amar Rashi, my kushya, din my mibifnim, makom zrizin, bimkom zrizin. Ravashi said, what is the difficulty? Perhaps the oven does not sanctify the loaves that are baked in it, and therefore the 2 loaves and the showbread are not disqualified by being left overnight. And accordingly, what is the meaning of the statement? Their baking takes place inside. This is not referring to the inside of the temple courtyard. Rather, it means they are baked in a place where there are priests who are vigilant in their efforts, who will supervise the loaves as they are baked to ensure they do not become leavened. In brackets, Zrizin, Elisha, in brackets, Lo, Beinan Zrizin, Pionami, Lo, Beinan Zrizin, Ella, the Ravashi, Berusahi, the Gemara notes, and this statement attributes Ravashi is an error, Baruta. As whichever way you look at it, Manashach is difficult. If we require vigilant priests for the baking of the 2 loaves and the showbread, we should also require vigilant priests for the kneading and the forming of the loaves. And if we do not require vigilant priests for the kneading and forming of the loaves, we should not also require vigilant priests for the baking. Rav Ashi's explanation does not explain why the Mishnah differentiates between the kneading and forming of loaves on the one hand and the baking on the other hand. Rather, the statement attributed to Rav Ashi is an error. When he made an error, or he never said it. Probably it was attributed to him and he never said it. I'm guessing that's what they mean. Rav Yehuda Omer, Kol Maseh Bifnim B'chule, Amar Rav Yevahu Bar Kahana, U'shnehen Mekra Echad Darshu, V'hu Derech Ol Af Ki Hayom Yikdash B'keli. The Mishnah teaches that Rabbi Yehuda says all the procedures involved in the preparation of the 2 loaves and the showbread take place inside the temple courtyard, whereas Rabbi Shimon maintains that even their baking may take place outside the courtyard. Rabbi Abahu Bar Kahana says, both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon derive their opinions from the same verse, which they interpreted homiletically. When David fled from King Saul, he came to Nov, where he requested bread from Ahimelech the priest. Ahimelech replied, "There is no non-sacred bread under my hand, but there is sacred bread." 1 Samuel 21, verse 5. Meaning the showbread. David then said to Ahimelech, "But it is a non-sacred manner, and yet it shall be consecrated today in the vessel." 1 Samuel 21, verse 6. But it is a non-sacred manner, and yet it shall be consecrated today in the vessel. Rabbi Yehuda Sava b'chol ishkachinu deka'av hulei amar lehu derech chol ka'afe tulei af ki hayom yikdash bekeli ipsil le melina. Both sages understand David's response to be a halachic critique. Rabbi Yehuda holds that David found the priests baking the showbread on a weekday. David said to them, "Why are you baking the showbread in a non-sacred manner," meaning on a weekday, rather than on Shabbat? "Yet it shall be consecrated today in the vessel," meaning it will be consecrated today when it is baked in the oven, and it will be disqualified tomorrow because it will have been left overnight. Rabbi Yehuda infers from David's criticism that the showbread must be baked on Shabbat in the temple courtyard as it is in a consecrated oven. It must be baked on Shabbat. Rabbi Shimon Sofer b'Shabbos hashchechinu. Interesting. Dika'apule amar lehu lo derech chol be'esu lemivadeh b'dei tanur b'kadesh shulchan hu d'b'kadesh. Rabbi Shimon holds that David found the priests baking the showbread on Shabbat. David said to them, "Aren't you required to prepare it in a non-sacred manner, meaning on a weekday? Does the oven consecrate the showbread? No, it is the table that consecrates it when the showbread is placed here. The loaves are therefore not disqualified by being left overnight." The Gemara asks, how can you say that David found the priest at the time of baking? But isn't it subsequently written, "And the priest gave him a sacred bread"? For there was no bread there, but the bread that was taken from before the Lord. 1 Samuel 21:7. This indicates that David received showbread that had already been on the table, not loaves that had just been baked. Elamai derechol deka'amalahu hachi ka'amri le leka lechem ki'im lechem apanim mosarim l'fnei Hashem. Rather, what is the meaning of the statement? But it is a non-sacred manner, and yet it shall be consecrated today in a vessel, which David said to the priests. The Gemara replies, this is what the priests said to him: "There is no bread here except the showbread that was taken from before the Lord, and the showbread is prohibited for consumption by non-priests." Amar lehu lo mi boya hai decheva dinafak le mimi'i lo derech holhu el afilu hayach nami de'ayom yikdash b'keli havule delechol. David said to the priests, "It is not necessary to say that it is permitted for me to eat this showbread, which has already been removed from the table. This is because the frankincense placed in the bowls that were on the table has been burned. Since the showbread has been removed from having the status of items to which the halachot of misuse of consecrated property apply, it is considered a non-sacred matter," meaning permitted to priests for consumption. But even the other showbread, which shall be consecrated today in the vessel, meaning the showbread placed on the table today, you should give him, meaning you should give me to eat. Apparently that was okay for non-priests, according to David.